Cloud and Clear, the podcast by SADA for innovative business leaders and technology enthusiasts, where we explore how Google Cloud is transforming the industry and what that means to you. Now here's your host, Tony Safoian.
Super excited today on Cloud and Clear to have a very special guest, one of our newest leaders within SADA Systems. Welcome to Cloud and Clear, Courtney Graham.
Hey, Tony. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No, thank you for doing this. I think you bring such a unique voice to the ecosystem and to the story. Can't wait to tell it. So here we are.
Yeah, no, it's been a awesome experience so far being at SADA, and I'm excited to kind of talk about my journey here and my journey kind of before I ever got to be here. So
can you believe it's only been 6 months or so?
I know. I looked at it today and I was like, wow, 6 months, like time flew. Where have I been? Feels like I've been here for years in a good way.
Exactly. Well, let's start with your background. You bring such a unique story of how you evolved into the position at Google and your roles there, which is how we found each other, and then of course to SADA. But your story goes way back from that. So let's start from there.
Yeah, it's interesting to try and find a spot to start in. So I guess I'll start at the beginning, which I think impacted kind of my career and my journey, which was I was originally born in Perth, Western Australia, and my entire family is Australian and grew up in and around Adelaide in Australia. And so what was interesting about that is coming over to the United States, you kind of feel like you have to immediately like find friends and fit in, even though you're like, have an accent. And so, part of, part of my assimilation, was like, how do I kind of navigate this world? Because it was so different from, where I'd come from. And so, I grew up there. We grew up, we flew into Champaign-Urbana in Illinois and found a town that was a very small town. It was actually a village, not even a town. I think the biggest thing in Mahomet, which is where I grew up, was, exciting to get a stoplight in town. And then like finally able to, I think now it's not a dry town anymore. And so like, it's funny because, I came from these kind of smaller town roots and coming from overseas, really made me focus on like, what was I really here for? And what were my parents really trying to instill in me, to find that American dream and to kind of build my own career and focus in on that. And so part of that kind of upbringing in Illinois, I found an outlet in sports. And so, I'd played basketball since about the third grade. My whole entire family played tennis and soccer. And I didn't want to be like them because, who wants to be like their older siblings when you're the baby of four? And so, I really, took to sports. And for me, sports was not only an outlet, but it was a place where I could learn to be a leader and to, be a team player and, deal with different people from different backgrounds and different, statues like that. And so for me, that was a big eye-opening experience, especially when you start getting on larger leagues and traveling leagues where you're interacting all across the US. And so for me, that was a big part of kind of where I started.
Division I athletes make really good enterprise software sellers. I just want to let you know that.
Yeah. So, coming from that, I went to a junior college my first 2 years. My first year, I actually happened to be team captain, and we got third in the nation. And so that was an incredible experience, climb the ladder, last game, cut the net, get the medal, have the media all there. It was really cool. But, part of my Division I experience when I, graduated at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville was all around community. A big part of women's basketball and women's sports, especially at the Division I level, was to kind of give back to the community that you were helped. So we did Habitat for Humanity, Fish and Loaves, all of these weekend, really great events were charitable of our time and our effort and our money. And so that was a great experience in itself to build kind of how, and I went from, this small town, gal, so to speak, to, growing up into this, giant organization such as Oracle and Google, which is kind of where I, started my career in tech.
Well, how did you really get attracted to technology and enterprise software? I mean, first of all, Oracle is like, I think as far as I'm concerned, they invented enterprise software sales and enterprise software. So wonderful. We have many ex-Oracle folks at SADA today. But how did you go from, what you were doing, which is very, focused in obviously the academic component, but also the sports component, and then saying, you know what, I want to do this?
Yeah, I think I fell into it. I think it was a little bit of luck and a little bit of, hey, I need to change, careers here. So I started off thinking I was going to pursue marine biology. I loved everything to do with the ocean. And in marine biology, you have to do a million math and science classes. And so for me, I'd already kind of fell into that math and science world. I had curiosity. I wanted to know how things work, and if I broke them, how to fix them. And so that leads a lot of, younger people into kind of the STEM type classes. And found out very quickly, I actually loved as a hobby scuba diving and dolphins and all the great thing about marine biology. But I was actually more apt to want to hang out with people, and that human connection was more what I wanted to, experience. I actually had parents who grew up in technology. So my father was actually in the engineering, computer consultant titles, and, entrepreneur. And my mother was, head of project management consulting in different careers throughout my life. And that was a big influence for, joining technology, and then having that, those key figures in your life when you're young that support you in those, environments in math and science, and push you in those directions as well.
Math and science was big for me too, growing up, of course. And then, but my parents, my dad, who grew up in technology, actually spent most of his time trying to talk me out of getting into technology, because the only clear path for him was medicine, but which I obviously didn't become a doctor. But the foundational education was very similar to what you would go in marine biology. So like the tech and science focus, I think, is obviously very relevant. But it's so funny. My 7-year-old is determined, not like a 2-week thing, but like for months now, that she's going to be a marine biologist. Like that's all she talks about. She's 7. She draws pictures. Anyways, I'm going to connect you two. We're going to talk it out, because I don't know any other people who have studied the field in any capacity. So she's going to get a kick out of getting to know Courtney.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said from about the 3rd grade through my first 2 years in college that all I was going to do was marine biology. So I got my scuba diving licenses when I was 13 and all sorts of other fun stuff, to really be like, I am going to be this. And then, decided against it, which is a story for another time.
Yeah, for sure. No, but just so again, Oracle being a great training ground. And then obviously setting you up with the foundational experience and knowledge to get you into Google. How was that transition from Oracle to Google? Did they find you? Did you find them? Is there something unique about wanting to work in the Google world that pulled you in?
Yeah, so I think in order to kind of answer that, I have to pull you back a couple of years before Oracle. But when I was in school and I left school, I originally started at State Farm, and being from Illinois, State Farm is one of the largest employers in Illinois. And so I started working for this wonderful woman, Karen Wilson, who was a State Farm agent. And she had me on track to kind of take on her agency and follow that path. And I think I was like 19 at the time. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to own my own business at 19. And then what I learned in that experience was the kind of the human element. You knew everyone who got a new car, bought a new house. If something went wrong with their house, all of the things that you would learn in that environment. And after State Farm, I started working at the Four Seasons, and the Four Seasons, or kind of while I was working at State Farm, the Four Seasons really taught me this. You were dealing with like the Cardinals team, and you were dealing with, like Americans Got Talent, and you're dealing with these really high level business folks and, powerful people that you had to, give a certain level of customer experience to. And it was during this kind of State Farm and Four Seasons, as I was doing this, that my college teacher and biggest mentor of probably my entire career, Ann Gorman, had gone back to her role as a global partner alliance at Teradata. And she had floated out my, resume to a few of her, connections. And that's how I got on the board of deciding at that time between Google and Oracle. So a couple of different roles came in. I felt like the Oracle one was the best suited for me. I was like on cloud 9 because I was like, wow, like they offered me a great salary. This is going to be awesome. And they're going to move me. And then they're like, pick any of these 5 cities and go. And I was like, you know, young. And I was like, all right, great, let's do it. And so I came to Austin. And when I didn't pick Google then, I had always wondered what my career would have looked like if I had chosen Google then. And so as I was going through this career at Oracle, which was actually, I think, the best choice I'd ever made at that moment in my life, I was finally around these individuals who were, you know, Ivy League school backgrounds, plus work experience, you know, plus the kind of this environment I hadn't been in before. And so I was like, okay, how do I excel very quickly and get ahead of the pack here? And how do I learn? And I remember showing up and they're like, okay, you're going to sell a database. And I was like, what's a database? Like, I have no idea. Like, and so it was this completely like, you know, transformational moment where I was like, I have no idea what tech, like I used all this technology, but I never really understood how it worked. And so starting at an entry-level job like I did at Oracle, it was a training ground. It was I have to learn the entire stack of technology as fast as possible with the components and sales. And so it actually helped my math and science background, but mixed with kind of what I learned from State Farm and the Four Seasons about how these companies actually work, that I was able to kind of put both together and really excel at Oracle.
Yeah, I'm sure Oracle, like, you know, sellers didn't have the hospitality experience, you know, like if we think buyers are challenging in technology, I'm sure like at Four Seasons and State Farm, like the customer experience expectations are like way beyond.
Yeah. I mean, the Four Seasons really changed my life. The Four Seasons has a mentality and they train to it that says, we never say no.
Yeah.
So you have to go through like, how am I going to structure, you know, a restaurant menu or a design or a group rate or an experience for our customers coming in. And I think having that background really makes, puts my mindset of how am I going to design an experience both for my team and for my customer that is exceptional, where I don't want to have to say no. And so you take that kind of mindset and that hospitality, edge, and you pull that into technology. Now you're customer obsessed. Now you're totally customer focused. And so that drives your results that you get at the end of the day.
Totally. So you're mixing like you never say no with now Courtney doesn't take no for an answer. So you got both sides.
Yeah, I have both sides of it. And it's funny because I always want to get people to a yes, right? Because everyone feels good when you can say yes. Like no one likes to say no. Like it doesn't matter what role you're in. No one likes to say no. And so I learned, very quickly, at Oracle of how to help maneuver the people around me and the groups that had to support me to get to that yes, to try something different and creative. And it wasn't until, to answer your question, it wasn't until I was able to move to Google that I really found an environment I flourished in that. It was in a culture and an environment that allowed me to not only just embrace that kind of never say no, but with all these people who are like, we want to say yes, like we want to do things that are super creative. And I really flourished in that change and that transition from Oracle to Google. And really how I found Google was a Google recruiter and manager reached out and they came to me from LinkedIn. And you and I have a lot of synergies on how LinkedIn has changed our lives. And so that for me was a life-changing moment, using LinkedIn to, come recruit me, to talk me through what the Google opportunity was. Wasn't planning on leaving Oracle at the time. And it just seemed like I had told Google no, 4 or 5 years before that. And I wasn't going to say no now.
Yeah. Look, I think one of the things that's admirable, and especially in enterprise software, like it's been a big emphasis for us for a few years now. It continues to take center stage. Like traditionally, enterprise software as a culture has been not very good in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We just haven't been. It's been an industry dominated by white men for a very, very long time, especially in the sales organization. So I know it's one of your passions. Actually, one of the reasons I was so excited about bringing you on board, because your influence at SADA could be so wide, right? in your role here now. But when did that become part of your passion, such that you wore it on like with pride and you're on your sleeve, and it's something you kind of led with? Did that start at Oracle? Did it get accentuated at Google? Because you never miss an opportunity to elevate the conversation along those lines, which is exactly what's needed at every level and every organization if we're going to take DEI seriously. So when did that really become a passion of yours?
Yeah, so I think very early on, again, kind of a parent lesson. My parents said that, you're going to experience a world in different angles, and we're going to take you traveling, and you're going to see all sorts of the world, and you're going to know, that you are privileged and you have a different life, and you need to be aware of kind of what that privilege gets you. And so I think that lesson was taught very early on. And then I noticed it. I mentioned traveling basketball, but when you combine different resources in a basketball team all over, you have rural and urban, you have different races on those basketball teams. And so when you're a leader of those teams at a young age, you learn that, some things are cultural, some things are just, racist, some things are, not in a world that you want to live in. And so I think, when I came to Google, they gave me the pedestal to be able to learn, to be able to, interact in all these really tough conversations, explore my own biases, and understand that it's a journey for everyone. And for me, that passion came from wanting to live in a world where anywhere that you look around, it's equal, and really wanting to change that in enterprise technology. I had some bad experiences first coming into tech where, everyone was like, oh, good luck, kid, or, hey, you can't do this because you're a woman, or, hey, we're not going to pay you as much. And, so for me, it was about having those people understand the humanity in it, understanding like if I'm working as hard as you, or I'm in the same position as you, I should be paid the same amount as you, and kind of just taking that on my shoulders and trying to elevate the conversation outside of just one label or one perspective. And I think that's what really helped me accelerate throughout my own career, but it's also how I really try to help minorities and other folks, develop this, unique perspective of how do you elevate above the conversation? How do you get champions on your team to help advocate for you when it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, no, it's an important thing for us, because in our whole industry, not only because it's the right thing to do, but it's actually really important from a strategic standpoint to be a place that's welcoming to everyone, that everyone can flourish and everyone can thrive, and you have a good mix of different backgrounds and ideas, because that's where all the best original thought comes from, right? That's where the broadest perspectives come from. They can't have people that all look the same, all come from the same place with the same level of whatever education or socioeconomic situation. They come from the same country and expect to have the best environment in which to compete, in a space. And also, like in this global competition for talent, you can't just be like half the population can't work here. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. So the tech needs it. We need it. Our customers appreciate it. I'm just so proud with how we show up now with Google and with our customers. And I mean, we still have tons of work to do, but I was so excited to have my first regional sales leader be a badass woman from Google. I was just very excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, what's crazy is, at Google, there's so many extra things that you can do. Like, there's so many trainings, there's so many things that can open your eyes. And, there's an allyship training, and there's different trainings that Google's put together internally that really help develop the conversation, even if you are the majority. And sometimes, part of being the majority is, it is on your shoulders to also have to change and also have to advocate for change. And so what I really thrived at Google with leading kind of the DEI movement in the central region was, how do we have a conversation that doesn't make anyone feel like they're being ousted, right? It's not like a white man problem. It's a everyone problem. And so that platform for me was really special when I was at Google, and I love the fact that I can help impact SADA, and as we grow, really look at the teams we have and have the most diverse teams. I'm really proud of the fact that Billy on our team has a very diverse team, that my team now has women and men and all sorts of different diversity metrics. So I'm really proud of what we're building here and what you're allowing us to build here and championing for us as well.
I think one of the keys to your story over time, and I felt that in our first interaction, the first message you ever sent me, and it's not like we'd worked a ton together and before like I met you, we hadn't. It wasn't like, oh, we were just like, yeah, me and Courtney, we go way back. No, like it was actually one of the first real conversations we had. But what was evident in your approach to this, and some of it was obviously timing, great timing, because we're actually looking to make this sort of investment. But it was like, it's your growth mindset, Courtney. That's infectious, is your growth mindset, because you're always wanting to be incrementally better at what you do, and the value that you bring, the challenge you take on. And I was like, yeah, maybe this person hasn't done this exact type of thing we're envisioning for this role in a few years from now, but I think she can really grow into it and crush it, because she's not going to bring some preconceived notions around what it could be, right? And
yeah.
And what's great about working in this ecosystem and growing as quickly as we are at Google and SADA is that it's not like there's some playbook. There's not some like preset, menu of how to do this. Like, we have to go invent. And I was like, that's the kind of person I want to go with me and invent what the strategy looks like at SADA. And obviously, I guess we're at least right so far, because you're just coming off like an incredible half and quarter. You have brand new reps crushing major deals. We had just had our QBR for one of the regions you manage, which is South Central, and like that trajectory, the progress we made. I'm just really proud of you, and I think you'll never lose that growth mindset that I know. But I just want you to know that like it's evident and clear in like everything that you say and how you think and how you approach problems. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks, Tony. It is incredible to be sitting here knowing, I've built an entire team and section of SADA, realistically in the last, maybe 90, 180 days, and to watch, a quarter of that team overachieve their, annual numbers, is incredible. And I feel like that's the reason why you made the investment, right? And that's the reason why SADA is going to continue to grow, is, by building in these, regions where we're betting our business on, and finding people who really love where they live and really want, to be part of the community and part of the technology scene, and have passion for that. I call my team unicorns, because I really had to go digging through these cities to find the top talent who really had that passion and wanted to build a business as kind of CEO of their own business, and had the capabilities to do that. And to see that hard work pay off so quickly is just a testament to the brand you've built here and what SADA is building in the long term. And the partnership with Google is amazing to see.
The best measure of any leader is how their team does downstream, right? That's like the whole thing. That's how I judge myself as a CEO. It's like, how are my folks doing? Are they overachieving? Are they growing? Are they excited? Are they happy? Are they building bigger teams? Like, that's the litmus test. It's like the fact that these brand new reps are crushing their numbers very early on, like within 3 months of starting at the company. It's like, okay, Courtney, like, she knows what she's doing.
I would love to take all the credit, but my team has worked, insanely hard. Most of them didn't come from the Google ecosystem or the partner system, and so they had, two flavors to learn. And then add a pandemic on top of that, and it's so much. It was so, challenging for them, so much harder for them to come on board, being remote. But not only did they overcome the remote, they overcame joining a new company, they overcame learning Google, and they're able to add value. That's what I'm so proud of for them and their achievements there.
So a new leader comes on I've never really worked with, and she has this grandiose plan to add all this headcount. Most of it gets approved. Had a little bit of a freeze, COVID, and we're opening back up. And I I don't know if I interviewed any one of the candidates, maybe one or two, but you hired so many folks. I'm like, I think she knows. She must know how to recognize talent, which is a gift to itself, as you know. I think it's one of my few gifts. Is like I think I'm pretty good at recognizing talent. But how do you hire? Like, what is even your strategy, your criteria? It's not an easy. First of all, enterprise sales is very hard. That's why people who do well here make a lot of money. That's like the world's always been that way. But it's very hard. Selling as a partner is completely different and also has its own challenges versus being in-house at Google, as now you've experienced both sides. You also didn't work at a partner before, right? At Oracle or Google. So how do you know that this person not only has like the experience, but the grit to succeed in this type of an environment?
Yeah, so I think what I really looked for in the folks on my team were that sense of hunger. Like they wanted to work for something. They wanted to be better. You talk about my own growth mindset. I really try to find people with that kind of mindset as well. Not because it's similar to me, but because it shows that they're willing to kind of invest what they have to give me, and what they have to give SADA and their customers in a way that they know that they can kind of course correct at any point in time. Mm-hmm. When you find people who are very much like, this is all I do, and this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to be, it's much harder to open that person's box, so to speak, and have them think differently or try something different. And so for me, what I looked at with my team was a sense of kind of hunger, a sense of drive, and really, I'd say an ability to trust. When I first get on with somebody and I'm talking in an interview, I probably know within the first minute and a half if I feel like I could trust that person. And so for me, I cycled through lots of different interviews that I never even passed on to recruiter or to you or to, anyone above me, because I just knew from the get-go that like, I don't think I could trust this person. I don't think I could walk this person into a board of directors and have them hold their own. And so I think about some of those scenarios and I ask myself, if this was the person who all of the sales resided on, would they do well? And so it's a sense of kind of your first gut instinct, but it's also the trust and honesty. I put that above anything else. I feel like I can teach someone Google, I can teach someone SADA. Yeah. What I can't teach are your willingness to go hunt, your willingness to keep yourself motivated, and your willingness to, at the end of the day, always fall on a sword if it becomes, trust and honesty at stake. And so that's really what I look for in my team.
That's amazing. No, it'd be like, I met like maybe Charlie or Anthony, or I met Jessica earlier, but like you bring someone on board and I didn't even interview them, and we're working on like the first deal together. And I swear, I think I did this at least twice after meeting somebody from your team and talking about a deal. We talked about a deal and I'm like, I swear to God, right after I pinged Orkita, I'm like, dang, Courtney hires really well. But I was like, straightforward, presentable, professional, know what they're talking about, high EQ, like, dang. Yeah, like I swear I did that like at least twice. Yeah. After meeting them for the first time after they'd already been hired. You know what I mean? Like,
no, the one thing I did leave out, I'm glad you mentioned, it is a big part of my team, is the EQ thing. I think, again, some things you can't teach, and in the empathy world and in that kind of EQ, you really, in this position in sales, or really any position, you have to be able to read people. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes, understand how to keep your cool, understand and be very self-aware. And so you don't thrive in this position, whether you're a manager or an individual contributor, without that empathy. It's such a big part of hiring.
Yeah. And like what I'm realizing, especially after the quarter we had, where we had like so many monster deals, including in your patch, but also outside of your patch, I'm sitting there and saying like, this customer has just signed, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $60 million contract. Like, to that company, this is probably their biggest financial commitment they're ever going to make. And they're making it to Google Cloud, but through SADA. Like, holy cow, there's no bigger expense that this customer is going to have than their cloud expense, and they're choosing Google Cloud and choosing SADA. That is very humbling. But also, how can you get, someone who's betting their entire business on this platform and on your support of this platform without an extremely high degree of credibility, trust factor, EQ, performance, drive? You can't. It's just not going to happen. These are not little decisions. We're not selling commodity widgets, right? They're like, if it works, doesn't work, whatever. Like, most of our customers are betting their entire business on this decision, and it's a huge dollar, commitment that they're about to make. So it's almost unbelievable, because I think none of us thought, especially post-COVID, like we'd be accelerating this fast. But I feel really good about this quarter as well. So
yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible to see that like our best quarter, in company history was one where we were challenged the most. Like SADA had, been in an office culture most of the time. I didn't have to go work from home, was able to go fly and meet customers and take them out. And, and everyone here had to adapt. And I think that's the credibility that, you have in your leadership, is to really, drive that home, that, it is about empathy. We all were like, hey, sorry, my kid's in the background. Sorry, the dogs are barking, and everyone, including customers, were in the same boat. And so I think if you didn't have those kind of traits and you weren't showing up every day, the customers can see that, and they value the fact that you're going to take their commitment seriously, and you're going to go hustle and drive and, fight and claw for the best deal, for them, and the best situation for their longevity. Given the pandemic, a lot of customers were not in a good place. And so we are the liaison, so to speak, of getting them into a better place.
Yeah, I feel very duty bound by that. We're in a position to help. We should help. And there's a bunch of things we did initially around the mechanics of helping them move to this different way of working, or helping them with financial relief or different payment terms or technical support issues. And then I think the longer term sort of the helping is going to be in the form of how can they experience massive cost savings by virtue of moving to the cloud faster than they thought, or how can they, on the flip side, completely transform their businesses. And that pathway leads through cloud as well, because cloud is how you do that. Certainly one of the most important tools in how to do that. And a lot of the customers, especially in the territories you serve, are traditional enterprises that are facing an existential crisis right now.
Yeah, and it's been really challenging to see, layoffs after layoffs, and people losing their jobs, and unemployment skyrocketing. And you think about this, and I do feel very duty bound, especially in covering the central region and the Southeast. I mean, these are people I grew up around. These are companies I supported, that now are having to face a crisis of, we need to transform. We need to, remove costs. We need to optimize processes in order to survive, in order to employ hundreds and thousands of people. And so, my team has been tasked with a huge, bag to carry on our shoulders of how do we reach all of our customers, and how do we really help them through this time, getting them the right, knowledge, the right technology, and really kind of driving those results forward. We can talk all day long how my title says sales, but really, it should say servant. I feel like my entire team is there to pick up the bag and really carry our customers on our shoulder and guide them to the right fit, or say when it's not the right fit. And I think that's the honesty you get from coming to SADA, for sure.
And what's different in selling cloud technologies is that 90% of the work is after the sale.
Yeah.
Like, that's the obligation. It's potentially a customer for life if we serve them well, but what they're buying is sort of the potential and the promise. So all the work starts after. Yeah, it's a lot of work to get them there. Those technical sort of credibility building, architecting, proof of concepting, commercial negotiations, all those things, very important to gain the confidence of the platform. But they're signing these multi-year commitments, and it's like, that's like, we're married. We're married now, and we have to make them successful. But there's also like the beauty in this model is, which is why we love with fell in love with the Google business is that a couple things, like nobody bought Google technology and never deployed it. In other ecosystems, that's not the case. A lot of people buy stuff in technology they never turn on. They buy it because it's part of a renewal or some enterprise agreement, and just kind of like the inertia causes them to buy things they don't actually ever deploy, therefore don't benefit from. And then the other part of it is like the incentive model for a partner is completely geared at driving the right behavior. Don't sell the customer something that they're not going to use because they won't pay you for it. Don't leave after the sale because they'll just cancel on you, right? Like these are very like it's do the right thing, but like actually the economic model of a partner like SADA completely depends on overserving the customer, and I think that's great for Google because that's how they scale through partners, but exceptional for customers. Like they know we have to stick around. We're engaged. We didn't sell some on-premise stuff and left, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think part of why people like to work here is because they get to see the business impact and the outcome of the sale they made, then the implementation work we did, and how to change those companies, how to change the people that made the decision, right? The leaders who bet on us, like what happens in their careers, but the people that use the technology. I think that's why I love this business, is because I see the impact on the people within SADA in that journey, but also, of course, our customers. And it feels like a great deal of responsibility because especially now, I think we can help. And I think customers have to accelerate what they thought was a multi-year journey to experience digital transformations. Like actually, they don't have years; they have months.
Yeah, it's definitely accelerated for sure. And I think what I've always said about my job at Google, and I'll still say here, is it's the hardest sales job I've ever had. And it's not hard because the technology isn't great, and that's what is so mind-boggling and so different for me from coming from the Oracle perspective is Google's technology is the best. When I first hit G Suite as an example, I was like, oh, why didn't I have this from the beginning of time? This was incredible. And then you go try and sell it, to large businesses and they'd be like, oh, we're already in an agreement or, whatever. And so you have really had to sell on the value of it. And what was mind boggling to me was that it had so much value. You just had to use it to see it, And so this job for sure is not about the transactional sale. It's not about, oh, well, we got one workload on or whatever. It's absolutely day in, day out. Every day you're here, you have to win. And it's, you have to beat out the other, vendors, you have to beat out the other partners, and the only way you do that is providing value to the customer at the end of the day. And so, this is going to continue to be the hardest sales job I've ever had. But it's also going to be the most rewarding and the most fun sales job I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, what's incredible is we have to pinch ourselves is that we're in one of the few markets in the world in which there's virtually unlimited demand for what we do. Doesn't mean it's easy to get customers to do it. But the demand is there. It is just a matter of engaging with the right customers at the right time. And not a lot of markets can say that. But there's like the next 5 years to 10 years are pretty well known. We just don't know how big it is. We know it's just very, very big. And it's going to grow very fast. No analyst can put an actual total addressable market on it that's accurate. But it's amazing to be in a position to not only participate, but drive the narrative in the market and drive the success stories in the market and drive the industry transformation in the market. We have a lot of work to do together for many, many years to come. Looking forward, do you have any sort of final thoughts of what you're thinking about the most? What's intriguing you the most?
I think what's great is I really view myself as a builder. I like to build people up. I like to build myself, bigger, greater, whatever. And so for me, the best thing about this hockey stick, so to speak, of Google Cloud and the acceleration is that there's going to be growth. There's going to be great growth for myself and my career. There's going to be great growth for the people I've brought onto my team. And I think that's what's exciting is that you can really build yourself inside a company that allows you to, new challenges, allows you to keep growing, allows you a greater sense of responsibility. I'm excited to see this trajectory of where SADA goes as we bring on, monster deals and monster logos and really continue this trajectory. That is what's fun for me. And building a very, diverse and equitable and inclusive team, is exciting to me, that I'll get to kind of lead that charge for this region and really develop these customers and SADA.
It's the biggest relief, and it's so confidence inducing in me as a leader to have, as a CEO, to have leaders like you on the ground that I just know, of course, call me when needed and I'll always show up. But like generally, like, you know what you're doing, you're completely aligned, you know how to execute. It's been the biggest relief for me, and of course for Joe and head of sales. And we're using that as a model, as you know. Canada's next. Our leader there starts on Monday.
Yeah, we're super excited to have that leader on the team. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Cloud and Clear, sharing your thoughts, sharing your story. I know the listeners are going to love it. And I look forward to doing tons and tons of great transformational work with you together for years to come.
Yeah. And, thanks so much for having me. It's going to be an incredible journey. I'm so thankful that you brought me on and allow me the creativity and build my confidence to, really execute in this region. So thank you for everything you do for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud and Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.